So we're back with Sandy Lindstedt, the author of the children's book, Life of a Firefly. And of course, here on Being a Woman, we always like to go a little bit deeper. So we want to go a little bit deeper into these themes in this book. It's based in Texas and Chicago, and you say it's based on your loved ones in faith, but just reiterate, why a firefly?
Why a firefly? Well, the firefly for me was like a metaphor for faith and for hope and for a light, because my future was bright, but nobody could speak into my future. And so that light of the firefly was something that I could hold on to, that light, because I think of a firefly as a little tiny little insect, yet he has a little light and he's shining in all the darkness. And so if he can shine that little light, you know, this little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine, right? So that was the little light that was in me. It was the faith in the future, faith in what God has called me to be. And it was more than what my surroundings were. And so as long as I could keep that faith, then that light would never go out, basically.
That's
I
beautiful.
love that. The light in the darkness.
It's
I
that
love
light
it.
at the end of the tunnel we keep talking about.
Yes, we constantly talk about that, because you can be the bright light even if everything else around you is dim and dark.
Yes.
I love it.
Well, Sandy, tell us, what are one of the events that occur that shapes Sandy?
Well, one of them was, I think, looking back, I think it was the fact that I had a grandmother who was a praying grandmother, and she took us to church and she did all these things, but it wasn't about religion. It was about her relationship with God and how she instilled that in me as a child. And so that's what I held on to. I remember praying for some shoes. I had to go to in Chicago. I was with my mom, and I had 5 siblings, and so we were all together living in a 2-room apartment. And so it was time for me to our class to take a field trip. I didn't have any shoes. I just had these little things called flappers, which meant that the sole was coming apart from the other part of the shoe. And I didn't have a sag lunch. And so that night I prayed, because I remember when my grandmother said that you have a father and that he will listen to you. And so I prayed and said, God, I need a pair of shoes and a sack lunch for my trip tomorrow. So thank you very much, Father, and I went to sleep. And the next day, you can say this was a miracle, because there was a giant box in my living room. And I ran over to it, and inside that box, there were shoes, brand new shoes of all sizes and colors, girl shoes. And it just so happened that my stepfather he was a gambler, a Kentucky gambler. He had gambled that night, and this guy didn't have any more money, and so he gambled for the shoes. And of course the guy lost, and so my stepfather brought the shoes back to the house. So that's how I got those shoes the next day. And then as I was going to school, the crossing guard lady, she saw me because I started to cry. I didn't have a sack lunch, and she took me across the street to a store and said, get this little girl everything that she needs and put it in a bag. And so I got my sack lunch, which was than everybody else's lunch. And I ran to school, and I got on the bus, and so I saw myself in the mirror as I was getting off the bus, and I saw my shoes. They were gleaming new shoes, and I saw my lunch, and I said, you know what, there is a God, and he knows who I am, this little girl in Chicago. So I was about 9 years old then, so that really shaped who I was from then on.
Ask and you will receive.
Hello.
Ask and you will receive.
Hello.
Oh my goodness, I love that story. So also throughout this book, you definitely do not shy away from discussing race. From the dialogue that the characters speak in to Sandy trying on shoes at a store and the owner not minding as long as she wears new socks. So just tell us more about that.
Well, when I was living with my grandmother, of course, I experienced segregation and racism much more than I would have in the north, up north, as they say. And so when I was living with my grandmother, I was going to be baptized. And so, of course, when you get baptized down south, you got to have brand new shoes, brand new panties, brand new everything, brand new dress, because you're a new person now. So that was the first time she took us downtown to one of the stores down there. And my sister and I, we saw a dress that we both really liked and said, yes, we want to try it on, And she said, no. The sales lady said, no, you can't try this on. And I didn't understand why, because this had never happened in Chicago, And so my grandmother said, we're just going to pay for it and leave. And that's how that went. So that was my first understanding of what actual racism was, because she said the colored can't try on these clothes. So I said, who is the colored? I didn't know who the colored was, because I had never heard all these different terminologies. And so then I started looking at the signs on the bathroom doors and on the fountains that said white and colored, white, Negro. And so that made me understand that there was a difference. And I was experiencing that difference, that somehow that I was not good enough or the wrong color to try on the clothes, to be a whole person. So yeah, that was an eye-opener for me.
Wow. And you carry those experiences with you.
You really do.
And as the holidays are near, Miss Sandy, tell us where we can find your book.
Well, right now my book is on Amazon.com. I have an ebook and my paperback is there. And it's also on Barnes & Noble and a few other sites which my publicist knows about. But it's on Apple, Barnes & Noble, I'm sure of that, and Amazon.com. So.
And Sandy, just lastly, just your final parting words with us here on Being a Woman. What advice would you give to those young girls out there, those young boys who are going through these tough lessons? What would you tell them right now?
Well, I can just think of what Congressman John Lewis said: never give up and never give in. And get in good trouble when you're doing it. Never give up and never give in. Never give in to your surroundings. Never give up hope, because without that, you start to give in to the things that you see around you. But as long as you can view your future, as long as you have that in front of you, then, and know who you are, and write it down. Write it down. Say, this is what I'm going to be. This is what I want to be. And keep that in front of you at all times. And you can make it, because I did.
Oh, I love that so much. This just spoke to my spirit today, Sandy. Thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
And on that note,
thank you for having me, ladies.
Thank you for joining us.
Okay.
Miss Sandy just taught us a lot about manifestation.
Yeah, she really did. You got to speak it. And again, that ask and you will receive. She asked for those shoes and she got even more. And I'm here for that. I love it. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Thank you.